Bump and Jump, aside from probably being the most family-friendly sounding rap song ever, is also a fairly early NES driving game. And you're gonna have to excuse the lack of copyright stuff on the title screen, but this is on a multi-cart, they kinda do that a lot. Which actually leads me to why I'm even playing this. See, on multi-carts, they like to add a lot of really small games, because that means you can fit a lot of games onto the cart. Just makes sense. It saves space. But the thing about these small games is they're usually games that you can pretty much completely forget. And I don't really know why I decided to play a game labeled Bump and Jump. Well, actually, it's because it had an N in them, and I like games that have N's in the title. It's just fun to say. But anyway, I decided to play Bump and Jump, and it kind of immediately captured my heart. The story, near as I can tell, is your girlfriend was captured by this pink dune buggy looking thing, and are you a bad enough dude to rescue her? Well, of course you are, because if you're not, well, this game doesn't go anywhere. The idea is simple. You drive along the highway, bumping and jumping, in order to get to the goal, defeat the enemies, and save the day. I like when games basically tell you everything about them in the title. It's great. Makes my life a lot easier. Anyway, Bump and Jump basically has 3 inputs. You hold up on the D-pad in order to speed up, which is, yes, kind of awkward. You can press the B button to slow down and activate your brakes, but you probably won't be doing that too often. And you press A to jump. You can only jump once you've hit a certain speed, as indicated by the blinking speedometer in the top left corner. If it's blinking, that means you're fast enough that you're capable of jumping. And jumping is a very important skill in this game. I mean, it's part of the title. It is one of 2 ways to defeat your opponents. You can either jump on top of them or bump them into the sides, and that can be a little bit risky, as well as allowing you to navigate the environment, because this game takes place on a Michael Bay set. Everything is blown up, and there are giant craters everywhere that you're just going to have to jump over. So jumping is very important, not just in defeating your enemies, but also in your survival. Speaking of defeating your enemies, like I said, there's kind of 2 ways to do it. You can bump them into the walls, or you can jump on them, but both have problems. First of all, jumping on them is kind of awkward because you can't really control your height when you jump. So if you jump at a certain point, you might land too late to perform a jump that would let you jump over a piece of environment, which could result in your death. So I know what you're thinking, the alternative would be to bump them into the walls. Well, that works. Like this game kind of indicates, you're basically driving a bumper car, and bumper cars don't like bumping things into walls all that much, if they're not already basically pinned to the wall. So bumping stuff into walls works, but getting them specifically aimed at the wall and getting enough distance in your bumps to knock them into the wall is actually legitimately difficult. And in addition to that, there are certain vehicles that are too heavy to bump, and therefore will basically bump you away and knock you into the walls. Which means if you want to take out your opponents, you actually have to employ a great deal of strategy. Do I have time to jump on my opponent, or can I bump them? If I can't bump them, well, I might have to jump them or just drive around them. That really surprised me because, again, this is a pretty small game. So to have that sort of level of depth is kind of flooring. Now, in addition to bumping and jumping and avoiding stuff, there is a grand total of 1 pickup in the world, which is gas. Gas is essential because if you don't have it, you can't drive. Well, actually, you can drive, but you can't jump if you don't have gas, which is kind of weird because your gas is constantly draining. And once it's gone, although I never really witnessed this myself, you can't jump, and jumping is of course necessary to clear obstacles and get to the end. So it's pretty interesting that even once you're out of gas and you're kind of like inevitably going to die, you still have a chance to redeem yourself by picking up a fuel pickup and getting that jump you so desperately need in order to survive. Again, depth. I'm legitimately shocked about Bump and Jump. I did not expect this level of depth from a cute little tiny NES driving game. I mean, this isn't Super Spy Hunter here. This is Bump and Jump. Damn, this game is good. There is one other thing that will litter the roads occasionally. If you see a really long green garbage truck driving around, if it starts to shake, it's gonna dump its trash on the road, and if you hit that, you die instantly. So you kinda wanna steer clear of those garbage trucks as much as you can, which does lead to more depth in terms of navigating the field and how you wanna get around it. I mean, you could jump over everything, but in doing so, of course, you might not necessarily land until, you know, you're over a crater, and then you're dead. So it really is pretty deep in how you navigate and handle your opponents, and it's one giant game of strategy, all in motion. But yeah, for such a small game, gameplay-wise, incredibly deep for such a simple idea. I have to admit, I'm surprised by this, and pleasantly so. It's quite enjoyable. Now, the overall presentation to Bump and Jump is, well, it's okay. There's something like a dozen levels, but it likes to reuse and recolor tile sets later on. So there's only like 4 or 5 individual tile sets, and that music is well produced and really catchy. Overall presentation-wise, Bump and Jump is pretty awesome. Again, for what you're getting. Now, if you want a copy of Bump and Jump on the NES, it won't cost too much. I mean, again, it's a small, kind of obscure little NES game that I don't think anyone really knows about or cares all that much about because it's small and kind of obscure and honestly not all that noteworthy. You can get it for about $10, and I mean, I got it on a Famicom multi-cart, so I mean, if you want to break down the cost of that cart per game, it's something like pennies. But for $10, yeah, it's a good game. It's not some grand spanning adventure that has like an epic story or anything. It's Bump and Jump. It's a game where you drive a dune buggy crossed with a bumper car, running everyone off the road, jumping over pits with like sprite scaling, which is pretty mind-blowing for this game. Seriously, this feels like just a tiny budget game, and yet it's really deep and just a lot of fun. If you can find this game for cheap, yeah, grab Bump and Jump. It's pretty damn good.